Right, good evening everyone. Welcome to Trolling with Logic. It's the 12th of April 2014. It's 7 p.m. here in the UK and 2 p.m. Eastern Time in the States. Just get all the usual disclaimers and announcements out of the way. Like I say, you can call in any time tonight. The Skype contact's up on the bottom of the screen there. It's Trolling with Logic. And just, excuse me, just send me a little PM with your contact request and the gist of your question, and we'll add you in due course. And as always, everything is being recorded, so if you call in, you grant us permission to use your likeness. And also, this recording, as you can see by the other logo up in the corner of the screen, it's completely public domain, so feel free to mirror this or share it in part or in whole, just as long as you link back to us as a common courtesy. And like I say, if you can't get through with your questions tonight, contact at trollingwithlogic.com or any feedback. We really want to hear what you think of the show. And also, just as a note, if you're listening to us on iTunes, please leave a rating and a review and help us move up the ratings a little bit. It'll be very nice. So I'll just get straight on to introducing my crew tonight and welcoming. It feels like ages, but welcoming back, Kirch. How are you doing?
Hey everybody, I'm doing great. How's everybody else?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We're all doing great. And Sheila, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Cal. Thank you.
All right. And Marty, what's up?
Not much.
Yes, and to the person in the chat room, I am definitely not Russian. I can speak basic Russian, strangely enough, but I'm not Russian. But anyway, we'll very quickly introduce the guest. And tonight, he's written a really neat little book, if I can get it up here on my Kindle to show everyone on the webcam. No, I can't. My Kindle's taking forever to boot. But he has written a really neat little book called Forming a Worldview. And yeah, there it is for everyone. You can, if you head down to the Kindle store, just type in Forming a Worldview, it'll come up. And I hope I pronounced his surname wrong. I should have asked you this before. But it's David Mahler, is it? Or Mahler? David Mahler and Kitch. Please stop the noise.
I'm sorry.
Right. And I think, as always, we'll get Sheila to go in with the introductory question. So take it away, Sheila.
Excellent. Well, I guess, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of background information? I know that your book pretty well covers this, but just for anybody who is unfamiliar with you, why don't you kind of give us an abridged version of how you went from a member of faith to being agnostic?
Sure. Well, both of my parents, they were non-religious, but they were fine with me choosing whatever religion I wanted. Middle school, I was invited to a church youth group with a friend of mine, started to go, was presented the gospel, became a Christian, and then I was a Christian for the next 16 years. I was a believer, a fundamentalist Christian, in regards to, believing that salvation comes through Jesus Christ. That's the only way to get to heaven, all that kind of stuff. Married, kids, business, all that kind of stuff. And then one day, my older brother, Troy, died all of a sudden, and he wasn't a Christian, he was an atheist. And so, I really started to struggle with the idea of hell, because it just felt so unjust that someone would be sent to hell just based on what they believed or didn't believe. And so I really questioned within myself, why do I believe this is true? I'm near certain that it is true, but I was never able to find a good reason. Like, I used to always look at prophecy and whatever else to try to sort of support what I believed, but I would always leave frustrated. So I researched for a couple of months and eventually found something that broke the dogma I was taught of inerrancy, and that was sort of a New Testament writer taking something from the Old Testament out of context. That's something I could not accept, and so that was it for me.
Okay.
That's interesting. I started out the same way. My parents pretty much left me to discover it on my own. But I just kind of stuck with it. I experimented a little bit, but for the most part, I just stuck with what I felt was truth. You mentioned it's not just your faith that's changed, but it's also your politics.
Yeah, that was much before that. That was while I was a Christian. I was more of a Republican, and then I was introduced to Ron Paul, became more of a libertarian. So that was before, and not nobody really cared about that. Everybody in my world cared about me becoming agnostic.
Right.
Just one thing, probably general question. The audience probably. Why do you choose to go with agnostic rather than atheist?
Because I still have I have a preference for deism. Like I was a deist a couple of months after I realized that the Bible just simply wasn't from God. I have a preference towards it, and I'm just sort of like an open-mindedness towards it. But it's not, I'm atheist as far as like any specific gods, like Zeus or Yahweh or any of that kind of thing. But I'm still open to the idea that there could be some kind of consciousness. There could be souls. All that stuff is possible. I just
you more see the kind of hard atheist as kind of shutting off that last door kind of thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, especially too because atheist usually means like, or not usually, but it's often associated with people closing the door on it. Yeah, like you said.
Okay, go back to Sheila. I think you had something there.
Well, actually, this was and I don't want to pull away from the religious part of it, but I just had kind of a question that came up when I was reading parts of your book. You voted Republican because that's what your father did, and it's kind of somewhat been my theory that a large number of the people that vote in this country, or really anywhere, kind of do it for the same reason. Have you found that to be true, just in as you discuss politics with people and talk about it?
I suspect it's probably true, but I don't usually ask, hey, what do your parents vote, and then what do you vote? And it wasn't just because he was a Republican. I mean, he talked about the principles, and I agree with the principles, and I just assumed that the people that were actually Republicans believed in those principles, but that's not always the case.
Right.
And I think libertarian more closely match my principles anyway. It didn't exist to me before Ron Paul.
Right. Well, do you still consider yourself a libertarian?
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's just wondering, how much did you find politics is intertwined with a religion? I say obviously I'm in the UK and it's completely different. Just people vote what they feel like, but it seems to me in the States that politics and religion are very intertwined.
They are very intertwined, and that's because the Republicans are typically Christians, and what matters to Christians most would be the moral aspects, and so they'll vote that they'll give preference to that, I think.
Yeah, and were you kind of in with the the pro-life brigade and climate change denial? Did you go in for all of that?
I don't think I had a hard position on. It's hard to say for some of that.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, I would have been pro-choice and would considered it murder. And it was only after I became agnostic did I become much more, much less black and white. I still don't have a hard position on that because it's a really complicated issue.
Yeah, but like I said, was that quite a difficult one? I know you've said you're not really decided on, say, abortion, but say once you kind of came out of the religion, did you actually find yourself just actually examining the other side a bit more? Did you close yourself off from the other side when you were a Christian?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I ended up watching sort of the Young Turks more, and sort of watched tried to understand other people's point of view more, and be a little bit more open to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, immediately afterward, I realized maybe gay marriage isn't wrong, maybe premarital sex isn't wrong. All these things that I believed were objectively wrong became, maybe yes, maybe no.
Mm-hmm. All right, Kitch and Marty, you two have been very quiet.
Yeah. Okay, I guess at this time we should probably start asking questions about this little book you've written, which I was informed of this very late, so I have no idea what it's about. I just heard the name, and it sounds interesting right away. I mean, forming a worldview, that's yeah, well, I guess I'll just let you explain what exactly you mean by that.
Well, I mean, maybe Christians use that term more often. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, that's the impression I get.
oh well,
But
that's
go
just a
ahead.
term I've been used to. But yeah, it's just how you view the world. How like what is reality, and you'll make decisions differently based on what you believe reality is.
Yeah.
And so this is, my worldview went from sort of nothing into Christian, Republican, and then libertarian, agnostic. And that's just this book basically just explains the events that happened in my life and the thought process behind the changes.
Okay. So it's more of a personal story than like helping people.
Yeah, it's a personal story, but then it also makes
That does help people, of course. But yeah, it's not like a manual.
right.
Okay.
All right.
And it also, in addition, it also makes arguments against the Bible's divinity. It just makes a lot of miscellaneous type arguments that I found compelling.
Yeah. What were some of the arguments like? Was there any, kind of counter apologists that really caught your eye in the start of your change?
Well, I really liked I liked Bart Ehrman. I liked Sam Harris. They were both great. And also Prof. MTH. I watched a lot of his videos on YouTube.
Okay.
He put together a lot of good stuff. Yeah, those were kind of the big ones.
All right. Kutch, you've been the quietest of all you so far, so we'll bring you in.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just trying to synthesize everything so I could come up with a little bit of a coherent question. I just want to ask, what was your motivation for writing the book? Why did you, writing a book is quite a bit of a heavy task. What was your main driving motivation? Was it to put this book out to help people, or was it more just something you just felt you had to write, just get your story out there? What was it exactly?
I think it was just something I felt I had to write. It was. Sorry, my brother distracted me. Yeah, the main reason was because I felt, when I first became a deist, or stop believing the Bible, I wanted to convince other people. I debated with people and whatever else, and I just had this. People viewed me as if I had betrayed God, as if I was foolish, and being emotionally charged in leaving the faith. They thought it was because my brother died and I wasn't coping with his death properly. And I wanted to really show people that this was based on logic and reason. It wasn't just some irrational. I'm not lashing out at God or angry at God. I even had to add a section in there explaining that I wasn't angry at God because people actually thought that. And I felt people didn't understand me, and they viewed me in such a poor light that I had to write something that was just articulated as best as I possibly could so that people around me would understand me. And likewise, that, I'm sure there are many other people that, like me, this would be a great book for them to show to their friends, say, look, this is reasonable, okay? Even if you don't become agnostic or atheist, I want other people to be able to accept people that are.
So just to go into, you mentioned there was a bit of a reaction from your own church when you can you go into detail what the kind of reaction was? I mean, was it quite negative towards you at first, or did some accept, or was it mixed?
I mean, the word accept is what I'm striving for, but I think for many of them, they'll never really accept it. It's always going to be a hope for everyone that I would become a Christian again. That hope will always be there. They believe that it's reality. They believe that there is a heaven and hell. They're not. I'm sure, they're questioning. Maybe I'll go there. Maybe I won't, because there's different angles on that. But they'll never truly accept it in the same way that I could accept someone being deist or agnostic or atheist, or even just someone that mildly believes in reincarnation. Yeah. All those are fine. You want to believe that? That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just when you mentioned your brother was a non-believer, Like, what was your kind of? Did that cause a bit of friction when you were a fundamentalist?
He was kind of like an uncle to me because he was like,
All
you know,
right.
12 years older than me. So I wasn't around him all the time when I got older.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it caused friction. You know, I would try to minister to him and try to get him to be a believer, but that, you know, he would just think it's crazy and he would be an atheist.
It was, yeah, you kind of just agreed to leave that part alone most of the time, did you? Just to get along.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
Yeah.
but I guess I should also say, though, when he was in a coma before he died,
All right.
I went to the hospital and ministered him while he was unconscious. That was sort of my last time I ever witnessed, really.
Okay. So, like you saying you were ministering, were you actually intending to go to seminary? I mean, was that a plan for you, or did you have that?
No.
No.
It's just something that basically, you know, every Christian should do in that type of situation. Really, it's like everyone should be witnessing.
Okay.
You know, everyone should be trying to spread the gospel. Like I still go to church because my wife goes to church,
All right.
and they have something called the 1.5 push because they say in this area only 1.5% of people are evangelical. So the whole goal, the idea is they want more and more people to become evangelical Christians.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'll go back to Sheila. If you have something to come in.
Does it? No, it's fine. Does it cause any friction between you and your parents, or they just pretty much don't talk about it?
Well, my dad was never actually a believer, so it's actually brought us a little bit closer together. Because we have, you know, we have more similar minds now. So my mom, it's funny because my mom wasn't a believer, but then I convinced her to become a believer. So that was back in 2001. So now she's all like confused and doesn't know how to deal with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I think it's fine, and it's just kind of a topic that we sort of avoid, I guess, at this point.
All right. Okay.
I have just a guest chat room question. It's from one of the guests with a lot of numbers in front of them. Which is a better model, rationalism or empiricism?
Well, I read the definition of rationalism, and I went with that as far as the explanation of my book. So honestly, I don't even know what empiricism is. So
Yeah. I don't know. Was that for the panel? I don't know. We'll let them elaborate on that. But Marty or Kutch, you can come in with a question there.
I have just to comment on that. I'm not really sure what the difference is either.
All right.
To Google.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like, in your time as a fundamental, I mean, what did you think of, you know, some of the kind of more notorious evangelicals, like, you know, Ray Comfort and Kent Hovind and all of them? I mean, were you kind of fans of their work, or, I mean, what was your view of them?
I guess to some degree, like I did watch videos with Ray Comfort and the other guy, the younger guy, the more famous person, Kirk.
Kirk
Cameron.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I even I would say I was in their camp.
So did
You know, I used to watch Ken Ham's videos about the dinosaur stuff and all that kind of thing. I'd borrow it from my mother-in-law and watch that because I was always looking for convincing evidence that I could use to convince others that it was the truth. You know, especially my dad. You know, my dad was the biggest one. I'd bring him to church and we'd be watching this speaker that was talking about, you know, that they have dinosaur bones that were found next to the bones of man, kind of like disproving evolution and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, you know, my perspective was, I believe this is true. Here's a really smart person who seems to know what he's talking about. Dad, talk to him. If you want the intellectual side, talk to him. But it just turns out, as far as I'm concerned, I was just wrong.
How important would you say that those things were for your beliefs?
I think for me, perhaps differently than most people, you know, I thought I was a very rational person, and I thought the evidence was out there to support Christianity. It's when I found out that idea of Christianity was a facade that I couldn't believe it anymore. You know, I was never like overly thinking it was all about faith. I just thought that I thought the evidence supported it. And I think I just too easily supported the surface arguments, the surface evidence, because it was already my position.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because I think it's interesting when I mean, some people give up Christianity because, before you mentioned hell, like the thing that gets you starting to doubt it is like, why would God do that? Hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. But for others, it's something like finding out that there is actually plenty of support for the theory of evolution.
Yeah.
And then, but then on the other hand, you have a lot of Christians who accept evolution and they don't consider that a problem for their beliefs at all. That's just how God did it.
Right, yeah.
So it's interesting to hear from someone who felt that that was a contributing factor in giving up Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that did it was a New Testament writer writing something about, basically said like a prophecy has just come to pass. But if you look at the original context, it's just talking about Israel. And then once I realized that, that was sort of the format, like I believed that the New Testament writers were just recontextualizing things based on what they believed. Then I looked up prophecy after prophecy after prophecy and realized they were always talking about someone else. They were talking about David or Israel or some other random person. And I was like, this is just not true. This isn't prophecy.
Yeah.
All right, Kitch. Do you have something there?
Sure. I have another guest question I actually have written down here. I just never got, and I didn't actually take down who asked it, but he wanted to get your views on anarcho-capitalism.
I have no idea.
You'd have to ask my friend Alex Stewart. He's much, much more into the economic side.
Okay, I think we'll go to you, Sheila. Let you come back in.
Okay, I have a friend, actually I've talked to several people, but I've got one specific friend who, because he was so devout for so long, and now he's actually kind of swung the other way and is fairly anti-theist, but he still finds himself, like, every once in a while he'll get this twinge, like, wow, do you like the threat of hell is still kind of lingering over him. Do you find that at all for yourself, or have you pretty much come to terms with everything?
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, at some point, I saw Bart Ehrman kind of mention that. He said, "Well, what if I'm wrong?" And I said, "Yeah, that's true, that's right." But then, give it another couple of weeks, and I was perfectly fine. It became just as scary as the Quran threatening hell.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Am I not ranting long enough?
No, but do you feel bitter at all about, that you might have wasted part of your life? I know some people have that regret that they kind of wasted a bit of their life on something like that.
Yeah, there is an element of regret, and the first things I felt were sort of anger at myself for being so naive and just accepting something with that, like, so significant without any real evidence. So yeah, I kind of beat myself up a little bit about that. Yeah. And but there's no time machine, so you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to remember the time scale, but were you still in the faith, like at the time Richard Dawkins and them? Well, when Richard Dawkins kind of came to prominence.
Yeah, I lost my faith probably 2.5 years ago, so it wasn't that long ago.
Okay, so what was the kind of reaction to Richard Dawkins when he kind of shot to kind of the celebrity he is now?
Oh, you mean while I was a Christian?
Yeah, like, was there kind of organised response within the Christian community, or just what was the general perception like when he came out with the God delusion? Hello? Hello? David? And we've lost David. All right. We'll hopefully get him back soon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what else. Someone was saying, can you ask if his deconversion was emotionally painful? Yeah, we'll kind of store that one up. Well, chat room, if you want to ask us any questions while David tries to get back, feel free.
Yeah, I should probably mention that people are always pointing out about how I'm not blinking, obviously a reference to the fact. I hope people are not stupid enough to actually not realize that it's a still image.
Yeah.
But no, my webcam is broken and it's simply not a priority for me. So I'll get a new one.
It's that and your Norwegian stoicism.
No, the thing is, money's a bit tight right now because I'm actually saving up. I'm getting married this summer, so I have plenty of
Everyone,
expenses coming up. So.
Yeah, everyone, round of applause for Marty. And I think we've got David back there. No, we haven't. He's gone again. Okay. I was going to say, Kitch, do you have any news? So.
Not much, just a lot of travelling in the next couple of months. I'm going to Nottingham next month and then Copenhagen for ESOF, so...
All right. And
so I can't really...
Looks like David's gone all together, so we'll just have to wing this. Well, what we can speak about is we have a little something going on the 5th of July, and we're inviting all of... You can actually attend, and no, it's not Marty's wedding. It's it's our annual charity show, and we're going for a good long 24-hour session. And Kitch, you can confirm a few names. You spoke to a few people this week, so yeah, let us know some of the people they can look forward to seeing.
Well, we've got a few. We have a returning guest, Mick Nugent, who is president of Atheist Ireland.
And he is always awesome. He is one of my favourite people in the world, I think I have to say.
Yeah, he's great.
Yep, he'd be on for an hour along with, I think it's Angry, and I'm not too sure who
Sarah,
the co-host for that. Sarah.
Yeah, to let everyone know, because I know some people do ask about Sarah, where she is right now. She is going to be back on the show come the end of May when her school term ends, and we're very much looking forward to having her back hosting here. So carry on.
Sorry. We also have confirmation from Phil Moriarty from 60 Symbols.
Yep, and Phil is a very cool guy as well. Not only that, we're teaming Phil up with the well-known Science of Sarcasm, or Not in My Name, you might know him. So that's going to be something interesting we're going to try is it's going to be the Irish Science Hour. Yeah, and just to let everyone know, it's not going to be about fermentation and brewing. So I'm sure that there's more to Irish science than that, isn't there, Kitch?
Yeah, it's Irish science. It's mainly biotechnology, but we'll find something to do.
Tiny stuff.
Yep, and if Pumpkin's there, no, it's not about physical force and explosions. Someone else knows Not in My Name. So yeah, we've got Not in My Name and Phil Moriarty. They'll be together, and Kitch and Sarah, who is intending to study physics. So we've kind of got like Kitch pointed out, we've got the full range of science education. We've got a high school science student. We've got Science of Sarcasm. He's at undergrad, isn't he? Doing toxicology.
I think so.
Doing toxicology. Kitch here, he's in the middle of his PhD, and Phil's a professor. So there you'll get to hear about science from all levels there.
Yep. So it's going to be an interesting hour, hopefully.
And I think that's everyone you've managed to confirm, isn't it, Kitch?
So far, I have sent out more emails. Hopefully, if we get them back, they'll be amazing. Hopefully, trying to beat out our mainstead guest, our main guest.
Yes.
So far.
There is one guest in particular. I can't announce it yet, but that big announcement will come in the following months. And
there are a couple actually that are on the list right now that would be awesome to get, and people will crap their pants if we get them, but we can't reveal anything because it's not written in stone yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Marty, you've got a few you can reveal anyway.
Yeah, for one, we've got some Swedish skeptics.
Yes. How do you pronounce VOF again in your own lingo?
Vetenskap och folkbildning.
Yeah. See, it's the language I love, Swedish, isn't it?
We've had Martin Rundqvist on the show before, so he's going to be there.
Yeah, and we haven't confirmed, but I think it's going to be a few more people from the society. So
Yeah, that was my understanding too, but I haven't talked to them actually. I'm letting you handle that.
So everyone get your ABBA and IKEA jokes at the ready for that one. And of course, lots of Norwegian insults for Marty.
Oh yeah. Who else do we have? Oh, we have some YouTubers that I've been in touch with. King Crocoduck, Vina Lloyd.
Yep.
Logic may be around. I haven't been able to confirm that yet, but he got back to me, said something about he wanted to know more about it. But so we'll see.
Okay. I can confirm a few folk. We'll have the Scottish Secular Society. They do have a new chairman, so he'll be there. And I think I'll be myself and Sheila will be hosting that because you're quite involved with them as well.
Yes, I love the Scottish Secular Society. They're doing a lot of really great things, and I got to work with them a couple of times on some stuff. So excited about that one.
And coming back as always, I think this is the Marmite man of our guest list is Coughlin. I know the chat room's probably going to explode at the mere mention of that man's name. But
you either love him or hate him. It's
we're going to bring back what we did in 2012, which it went down very well with me because I was doing the tech and I was in stitches the whole time because the tech kept failing and Coughlin and the Maxman they ran with it so well. So for those of you it's going to be Coughlin, the Maxman and Angry Pumpkin all in the same chat, Skype chat. So if you're offended by anything in any way, in any case, don't watch that.
It's the hour equivalent of throwing a live grenade into a packed room.
Yeah,
there's got to be some collateral damage.
Yes, what 5919 said. That's the only way I think we can make that more explosive if we got Thunderfoot in that conversation. But anyway, carrying on, we got another comedian, one that you knew that you've been able to get a hold of, Sheila.
Yes, he hosts the Funny to the Moon podcast. Sorry, I kind of had a brain fart for a second. His name is Travis Simmons. Very, very funny man. He goes by Big Funny. But for anybody who is unfamiliar with him, definitely check out his podcast, Funny to the Moon. He's on, it's one of the, a Blog Talk Radio. He often partners up with the Pink Atheist. They do a lot of stuff together. Very funny, very smart. He's a big fan of like Ingersoll and stuff like that. So we'll probably be talking some about that and a little bit of philosophy and stuff. So I'm also going to be doing. I'm bringing the guys from A News on, so that'll be like atheist news and comedy and stuff. So I guess I'm handling the funny stuff.
So and I managed to get a hold of a few people this week. We have Kylie Sturgis, also known as Token Skeptic. She's a well-known Australian skeptic. She'll be teaming up with Big Lundy for what is given that we have Coughlin and all that kind of insanity. It's very strange that the philosophy out always seems to be such a massive hit when you go from that extreme to this extreme. She'll be, and we're hoping, and Robert Johnson, who we had last year, who wrote the really neat book, Rational Morality, A Science of Right and Wrong, he'll be joining in with that. Cool. And who else? This week we managed to confirm someone you might not, who I think is criminally undersubscribed and not mentioned, is Physics Girl. If you go onto YouTube right now, type in Physics Girl, look her up. She does some really neat videos. I think you've been quite impressed by her, Marty, from what you've seen so far.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of it, but I like what I've seen.
Yeah, and also on that we have the Science Babe. She does bits on history about everyday science. Are you familiar with her, Sheila?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I don't spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos, but she's definitely one of them that I've seen.
Yeah, she's more on TV, so it's kind of quite good to get her. And I can't remember who else we've confirmed this week. Is there anyone I've missed?
I don't know. I
Well,
can't. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which ones are confirmed and which ones aren't.
I'll have to have a look. I've got the
Yeah,
schedule.
I need to bring up the bookmarked thing there. And
Be good if we
I
could
can't
have
be bothered.
Be good if we had a bleeper. We could bleep out the really big names and leave everyone in suspense.
Yeah.
Oh, we also forgot to mention that we're. Oh,
Hello?
Oh, hi
Hello?
there. Hi, David. Welcome back.
I apologize. My connection died.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
okay.
no problem. It happens.
So I've totally... Anyway, people, that's what's happening with the charity show this year. There'll be more announcements if you follow the blog, and go to our Facebook group. So welcoming back, David. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, thank you.
All right. So, and we completely lost our place from where we were. So,
Well, there's a question in the chat. If I scroll up to before he left, or maybe we covered this. Was your deconversion emotionally painful?
The most emotionally painful part was considering that God might not exist. It wasn't, I mean, it was certainly emotionally and confusing during the seeking part. I was trying to figure out if this is true or not. But then once I realized that the Bible wasn't from God, I didn't even really think about, does God not exist? Because to me, they were completely different questions. The question of God, I still believed in God because I believed it was impossible for us to exist otherwise. I didn't think that life, especially conscious life, would be possible unless there was a creator. So they were totally different questions. But so to answer the question, it was much harder considering that, over the years, my very private conversations with God could have just been me talking to myself.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I hear quite a bit is that people who give up belief in God, they feel kind of betrayed, almost like.
Yeah.
It was. That's something I have a hard time getting my mind around, really. I've never been a believer myself, but it's like almost as if when you find out that God doesn't, or when you start suspecting, or whatever, however you want to call it, that God doesn't exist, it's more like he did exist, but then he just decided to go, screw you, I'm leaving.
Right.
And it becomes like a feeling of having been betrayed almost. Does that ring a bell to you?
I could imagine it in the sense of feeling betrayed from the people around you, because it was a worldview based on trust. Essentially, you're trusting what everyone else is telling you, but I didn't really feel that because I don't believe that they're doing it intentionally. They honestly believe it, and so they're not. It's not like they're trying to fool me. They themselves are also fooled. So it's just kind of being I get upset about certain things. Like I get upset when people say that I've betrayed God, or that I'm foolish for asking so many questions. I mean, these are people that are like my friends and family, so it's.
Oh yeah.
When probably one of the only really emotional thing that came for me from my deconversion was the thought of the afterlife. That kind of need to want to live forever. Was that come into it? Your deconversion?
Yeah, that was the difficult part as well, because if God doesn't exist, then there's really no reason at all to believe that there's an afterlife. So, I mean, I even still question certain things like, does the soul exist, before I question, does God exist? Because to me, I'd probably be the most easily to accept God existing, but then I'd need additional reasons to believe the soul exists, and then additional reasons to believe the afterlife exists. They're all kind of separate issues.
all right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that people so often mix them together and think that it's basically the same thing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Sheila, we'll bring you in there if you have something.
Do you have kids right now?
I have two.
How are you? I'm sorry?
An 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, sorry.
No, that's all right. How are you raising your children? Are you pretty much raising them the same way that you were raised and letting them discover on their own? Or, do you and your wife kind of conflict on that at all?
I think my wife and I conflict. I mean, she seems upset just that I've been upfront and honest about where I'm at. Oh, I just saw something pop up for a second as far as a question, but
Yeah, that's all right. That's just the chat room. I usually feed them through, and they'll get answered in time. They'll
okay,
get asked. Sorry. Yeah, carry on, David.
sure. Yeah, so there certainly is conflict there. She's become even more fervent since I've walked away. She's been doing Awana, she's been volunteering more, and just anything and everything. It's like she's trying to make up for me not being a Christian anymore, and wants to instill it as strongly as she can into the children. And I've just kind of said to my oldest, because my youngest doesn't understand yet, but I've explained my position. I said, I just want you to be able to accept, my position, even if you don't have it. I'm not upset at you for believing in God. You don't have to pick my side or anything. I just wanted to think independently. I just want to be, open and honest with her in that. And even that is looked upon negatively by my wife.
Okay.
Does it seem like, sorry, Cal, does it seem like, can you kind of gauge where your daughter's views are at the moment? Is she still kind of, a believer, or does it seem like she might kind of wander over to your side?
She's a believer. I don't know where she'll end up. She's very, very intelligent. But who knows? Environment is a huge factor.
She asks a lot of questions, like why you believe specific things, or has she kind of gotten to that point yet, or is she still just kind of just following whatever she believes?
We've had discussions, and I've kind of tried to get her to just maybe ask some questions, or just tell her I'm open to answering questions. But perhaps we'll have more conversations down the line.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. I think, Kitch, seeing as you've been handling chat room questions, you can carry on.
Sure. Sorry, I just have to go up just to get to the
Yeah, no problem.
the first one. This is from Bob to Bits. Can David compare the pain of deconverting with anything else? Never having believed in never believed in God since I gave up on Santa.
Yeah, I think that's Bod saying kind of his own example there, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, to me it just felt like, in some ways, God was my closest friend, and considering that he might not exist at all, it's I don't know, it's really hard, especially too because there's an aspect of meaning tied up in that, because without God, then we're essentially just atoms, and we're just by sheer chance I'm able to consciously speak to you right now. Those types of things, they seem impossible. They don't feel right. I think that's how a lot of believers believe. It's all about feeling, like what do you believe in your heart, So.
Okay, and there was another one there, Kitch.
Sure. This one is from Organic Beekeeper. Does David's family equate deism with atheism?
More or less, yeah. So deism would be just looked upon pretty much just as negatively.
Yeah, that's speaking like the denomination you were in. How did they view just other denominations in general? Were they kind of the one through path kind of thing?
Say that again?
So, was your own denomination believed they were the kind of one, the proper true Christians, and all the others just had it completely wrong? Or
there is some flexibility with that. I think the main thing is as long as the church believes that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through him. That was kind of the most important thing, having your faith in Jesus. Everything else was kind of peripheral issues.
Yeah.
They might disagree, but they would still consider them a brother in Christ.
Yeah, because where I grew up, Catholics were they were the devil to us. That's always specifically told that in Sunday school. Was that ever, stuff like that never came up? No.
Well, not to that extreme, no. It would basically be like Catholics are wrong. They shouldn't add these extra books to the Bible. They may or may not have a personal relationship with Jesus. So that basically they're misled, but not that they're the devil or anything.
All right.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that way. Then when they point to polls saying that we're in the majority, therefore Christianity should be the religion of the USA or something, or words equivalent to that. They kind of lump all of them in together, but then there'd be some people who make that argument that would say that, oh, Catholics are the devil, or you're not the right type of Christian.
Right.
I
think
yeah,
I think a lot of that came together sometime during Kennedy. Like the word Christian, they encompassed everything around then.
Yeah. And all right, Sheila, do you want to come in there, or Sheila?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry. There's just another question in the chat room. When it became known you didn't believe anymore, did you have anyone come to you and confide that they were doubting and just hadn't plucked up the courage to declare it yet?
No, I mean, I guess I was kind of hoping for that. But no, nobody's done that. I mean, somebody else, like my wife's cousin, sort of went through the same thing. Like he made it known that he wasn't really a believer, and that was kind of a big shock to the family. And I've had other people before me, friends that were in the church that sort of walked away. And I even felt, that's a hard thing to see someone else walk away from the faith. So I understand how people feel about me, which is another reason I kind of wanted to write the book, because for me it was like this, why are you leaving? I don't understand. And so I'm sort of answering that to an older version of myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it does.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when the doubts started to creep in, did you speak to any of the clergy, and what was their kind of reaction? Like, did you speak to your pastor or anything?
Yeah, I did. I was trying to explain to them, perhaps naively, that like, hey, listen, there isn't evidence for this. Like, we should all follow truth, But they, I talked specifically about prophecy because I came up with a whole list of them about how they weren't actually about a coming Messiah. I mean, in many of the cases, and that they were just about, King David or Israel, about something that happened in the past. And then they just referred to it as mirror image, as if like, not only did they happen to this in the past, but they happened to Jesus, even though it's a completely different subject and a completely different context. And I said, how is that evidence? How is that evidence at all? It doesn't make any sense. And the reality is it just isn't. But there's some aspect of when you believe something, there's some level, something you think about things a little differently, and it's hard to explain. And
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, anyone want to come in there? Hello? Echo.
Yeah, I'm trying to look through the chat room for more questions from people there, but it seems like they're talking about other stuff.
Yeah, all right.
I'm not interesting.
Well,
no, they were talking about basically should we read the book? And so the reply was, if you like reading stories of other people's deconversions, you should definitely read it. And I guess you'd agree pretty much with that. But on that subject, should other people read it as well? I mean, who will? Well, obviously you want everyone to read it because
sure,
you're getting paid for it. But
no, but I think it'd be appropriate for people who are trying to figure out their worldview. People that are doubting, or people that have left the faith, that have people around them that just don't understand, and they don't want to take the time to write their own story. They can say, listen, my story isn't exactly like this guy's, but read this and maybe it'll help you understand me a little bit better.
I mean, do you think like the book could help me, maybe even for parents, if they have a child that's going to go through, that's having their doubts, do you think this book would be of help to them as well? It could be like
to a child, you said?
Yeah, like say as a resource kind of thing, like like I say, you are quite liberal parents, but say there's another, and their own kids going through his doubts about religious faith. Basically, would you recommend a book in that?
The audience should be probably at least teenager or something, because I do talk about some things like prostitution and stuff just on the libertarian side. Sometimes I talk about heavy topics like drug use and whatever else.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't give it to a child, but
All right. Okay. So can you just go into depth for like what bits of drug abuse do you talk about in the book?
well, I kind of talk about how my position has changed on some of those things,
Yeah.
like little nuances. Like no longer is drug use completely objectively wrong because it's, you're either doing something against the temple of God or you're breaking the law, which is also a sin. So I had to classify it a little bit differently, and it's sort of changed from objectively wrong to largely unwise. But then I also give examples of saying, I don't take issue with someone that just wants to, smoke pot once a week and they're a highly functioning member of society, or they want to experiment with MDMA. I don't equate something being illegal as being immoral.
All right. Yeah. Okay, guys, you want to come in?
That's interesting. Your comments about equating illegal with immoral. Do you find now, more so than later, that a lot of what you conceived or you perceived as immoral just because it was illegal? Do you find that I'm kind of having trouble phrasing this properly? Do you find now that your beliefs then were more like you assumed that things were immoral just because they were illegal, as opposed to now?
It wasn't so much. I mean, the reason was strictly because it's in the Bible. Like, you're supposed to follow the law. So if you're breaking the law, then technically it's objectively immoral. Now, even within that frame, nobody's perfect, and I still didn't exactly follow the speed limit. I wasn't that legalistic about it. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, sort more or less, yeah. Someone's asking a question, do you believe in objective morality?
I guess not, as far as like completely objective. I think it's a mix. Like, if there is a God, then maybe you could argue that some of morality is objective. Like, I don't know, some things are more black and white than others. So I guess I'm largely more subjective.
Mm-hmm. Is it like?
But I don't think it'll ever be the case where raping someone is okay. It's not like a society, a million years from now that will be okay. No, that'll always be wrong.
Yeah. Right.
I say, how much do you get hit? Because that's like, for anyone who deconverts, it's one of the most common things we get thrown at us about morality. I mean, was that quite when people are trying to keep you in the flock, so to speak, did they use that argument a lot?
I don't think so. I mean, they kind of. I mean, at one point, somebody sort of wanted to keep me in, as far as like almost like you're betting eternity on this kind of thing. And I said, well, I'm not even sure that there's anything after you die at all, And then people are kind of shocked by that position, even though it seems to be the most reasonable at this point. I was even shocked to hear my brother thought that years ago. I was like, really? Like, that's it? Like, you just die and that's it? You're gone? It's shocking to a believer to even consider that.
Yeah. Okay, there was Kitch, there's some questions come through for the chat. I've put them in the Skype there. So.
Sure.
I think.
Do you think those of this is from a guest with a lot of numbers? Do you think those of faith read the book too, to try to help them understand why you turned away from faith? I ask as one who realized there was no God after searching for spiritual fulfillment until I was 47 years old.
So the question is, do I think Christians should read it so that they understand better?
Yeah.
I think it's more broadly as people of faith, so Christians.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great, because I think there is this stigma associated with agnosticism or atheism, and I think a lot of that would be less if Christians better understood. But the problem is, it's sort of this catch-22. I mean, it's my desire that people of faith would be able to accept people that don't believe as a rational position that they just don't happen to have. That's kind of impossible in a way if they really believe it, because if they really believe it, they really believe in heaven and hell, and that what you believe actually matters in regards to where you go. So it's kind of impossible to have this middle ground. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, and there's another question there, Kurt, isn't there? Or was that them?
I think that was them.
Are we caught up with it? Just let me double check. Yeah, that's it. So go back. Sheila or Marty, do you have something to come in with here?
Well, there's another question there regarding the artwork on the book, I assume.
The artwork and the title.
That it seems sort of new agey, so it might not appeal to believers. Any comment on that?
Yes. Apparently, I'm not very good at marketing, so. No, I just thought it was a beautiful photo that I saw, and I thought it was, it really encompassed the idea of worldview, because it's someone, the eye and then the globe. So I just thought it was really nice looking.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, you're not a writer to trade, are you? If you don't mind
Right.
asking. So, how was the process of writing a book for the first time for you?
Basically writing it and then rewriting it and just editing it. I'm probably much better at editing than writing to begin with.
Right.
So it was a lot of just rewriting.
Yeah. And did you look to any other kind of famous books, like, for just general ideas of the flow and that? Or did you just kind of, your own idea out there?
Just put my own idea out there.
Yeah. All right.
On that subject, what was it like being published? I mean, was it hard or?
It was pretty easy. I mean, it's mostly just through it's just an ebook through Amazon. So, once I wrote it and came up with the cover and wrote the description and all that kind of stuff, you just submit it. It's a fairly simple process.
All right.
Oh, okay.
We do have a question from Commander Krug. I'm guessing, he's just come in here, but how much of a Christian were you before your deconversion? I don't know, like if we were to use a scale, I don't know, what would be the most extreme? Like,
I mean, I believed it as truth. As far as like, was I effective at convincing others or ministering to others? Probably not as much as I should. I'd pray for other people and that kind of stuff. I'd have a relationship with God as far as, praying to Him and praying for others and praying with my wife and going to church every week and, thinking how awesome, you still get that rush of how awesome it is when you hear of someone else coming to the faith. So it was very much a real important part of my life. I mean, a big focus of my wedding was like, hey, we want this opportunity to outreach to others. It wasn't so much about like, oh, let's just celebrate, our love together. It was, how can we use this opportunity for the kingdom?
Yeah.
That was my demeanor.
So you're pretty much it sounds like your every waking moment was almost, you were on the mission, weren't you?
Well, I wouldn't say it like that. I mean, there's much of you certainly focus on the rest of life, but it was very important. We'll put it that way.
And like, what's the single biggest change just in day-to-day life you've noticed since you left the faith?
Well, I'm a stay-at-home parent, so not too much has changed, but it's a little bit awkward, or at least it was a little bit more before. Going to church, because I still go on the church softball team. I still love playing softball.
Yeah.
And the first summer, when I wasn't a believer, it was kind of awkward, really awkward. And so, there's still that awkwardness because some people talk to me about it, some people don't. Some people tend to say hi to me more because they're happy I go to church, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Other people I just think don't even want to talk to me. So.
Okay, Sheila or anyone else, can you come in there? I'll go and look at the chat room, what they're saying.
Sure. You said it was kind of awkward, like playing on the softball team. Was it just a personal feeling, or did you just kind of get like weird vibes from the rest of the team? And if it's the latter, how are they with you now? Have they just kind of gotten over the fact and they just get out there and play softball, or how is it?
It probably is from person to person, but I think a lot of it was probably just internal for myself, because there was a period of time where it's not like everybody knew at once. Like I made this huge announcement, so sometimes there'd be trickles of people like, okay, these people know. So some people knew, some people didn't. But I guess in some regard, I almost felt like I was being fake, because I'm like, okay, maybe some people don't know I'm not a Christian anymore, and I don't want to be fake. So I think most of it was internal. I wasn't getting the cold shoulder from a lot of people or anything.
That's good. It kind of seems like you got a fairly nice group of people that, despite the fact that you're not necessarily in the same faith anymore, at least they're still nice to you, I guess.
Yeah. They're still nice. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I hear of things sort of indirectly, as far as like people thinking my arguments or logic is poor, which really, really frustrates me.
Yeah, I think anybody who's ever had to discuss, faith with a member of the faith probably feels the same way. Yeah. Do you have any plans, do you plan on doing any big talks or attending conferences as a speaker, or maybe writing other books later?
I don't have any plans in the meantime, but if this first book becomes a success, then perhaps I have a new career on my shoulders.
Someone's asking, what way does your view of the future differ now from before?
I don't expect the second coming to come.
Were you one of those Christians that were expecting Jesus to come back like next week or?
It was always a possibility, but I would definitely be into the end time prophecies and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't, I didn't have any confidence in expecting it anytime soon, but I'd probably be one of those people saying like, yeah, I think it would happen in the next 50 years or whatever.
Okay. So
you weren't like, jumping on Harold Camping's train or anything like that?
No.
Okay, someone's asking, do some of the believers who still know you and know that you're a non-believer ever hand you apologist books and keep trying to bring you back to the fold?
Yeah, I had a friend of mine come and visit me a couple of times and try to talk to me and reason with me or whatever, and I would try to reason with him at the same time. But he doesn't meet with me anymore. Another person, my ex-pastor, he actually read my book and he said he was going to send me some comments.
All right.
So I was actually pretty good friends with him. I miss him, and I think I had a dream actually about him disagreeing with me last night.
I was going to say, what's some of? I mean, do they give you any books or literature from famous apologists?
Yeah, there was one actually that Chip gave me, the person I was just talking about, Has God Spoken? So I was reading that and sending him emails about all of my replies and whatnot. But then once I was halfway through the book, I'm like, all right, can we maybe be done with this? I've heard all this kind of stuff before and I didn't find it convincing. Could you just point to maybe the most convincing parts of the book? And then the stuff he pointed to me wasn't even really arguments. It was almost like, I think it has to do with more of a consequentialist view, as far as you're betting your life on this kind of thing, and heaven and hell is a big deal. I think it's almost like a fear-induced view. Why would you look at these details? Look at the threat.
Yeah, you've got all this.
Risking.
Yeah, you're going to lose all this. Do you want to play that game and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
All right, Marty, you noticed a question in the chat room there.
Yeah, I consider myself a Christian, but a lot of my beliefs are from other faiths. My question for David is, am I still a Christian or not? I guess he's just asking for what your opinion of what a true Christian is, or something like that.
I would, my opinion is you need to be a Christian, you need to believe in what the Bible says. I believe that it was without error.
Catch noise.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I believed it was without error. I suppose you can still be a Christian and believe that it has errors, but there's some core doctrines you have to believe to be a Christian. You at least have to believe that Jesus was the Son of God and that he rose from the dead. I mean, that's like a bare minimum. If you just take certain principles from other beliefs, whatever, but I don't think you can really believe that those other books are written by God because they conflict with the Bible. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a similar idea. My answer to this question about who's a true Christian and whatever, for me it's always, do you believe in God? Do you accept that Jesus was the Son of God, that He died for the sins of man and rose from the dead? Well, if you do, then you're a true Christian. There's really no other way to distinguish a true Christian from a false Christian. I mean,
but even Christians are like, nobody really knows except God. Like, nobody knows the heart except God.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, Kit, as you probably saw, there's a question come in from the chat room. So again, you've got the job of chat room questions tonight.
And this one is from Organic Beekeeper. Does David think that some of the people who stopped approaching him were worried that he was making too much sense?
I don't know if I can speculate as to why. I think when it comes to a point where maybe they realize that they're not going to convince me. In fact, that's what he kind of said, and I think that at that point that they will retreat and pray that my heart would be softened. That's what I think they would do.
Yeah. Interesting. And go back round. Sheila, do you want to come in with something there?
Okay, sure. Somebody mentioned something about Christianity mostly being a copy-paste religion. Do you agree with that? Would you? Did you notice this, especially when you started kind of reaching out and studying other things? Did you kind of find that a lot of the things that you were told were correct to your religion, or also they weren't exactly just yours, that they had either been inspired or had things in common with other religions?
I mean, I was under the impression that Christianity was one of the oldest. That was one of the reasons I picked it, was because it was one of the oldest, largest religions. I mean, that's what you would expect from a religion if it were to be the true religion. I mean, you can't expect God to allow other religions to be created and then later on Christianity be created. But apparently that's the case, at least to some degree. I've heard of other things, like the story of Noah has been in previous books, but I don't know a lot about pre-Christian religions besides Judaism.
Yeah, that kind of leads into a question was asked: what were the views? How did you feel about like other religions, like Judaism and Islam in particular? What were what kind of things were being said in the pulpit about them, if anything at all?
I'm not sure they talk much about it, but I think the view is that they're just mistaken, they're misled, they're deceived by perhaps Satan.
Yeah.
So it's just those are the people that need to be reached. It's a very sort of loving environment, even if it is mistaken. I mean, they're even sort of like love the person, hate the sin, as far as like even homosexuality or whatever, like you should invite your gay friends to church kind of thing.
Yeah, because it sounds like you've been quite lucky because, just through this show we've spoken to some people when they've left, they've lost kind of everything, like family, friends, ostracized by the community. So, I mean, do you consider yourself, at least you're quite lucky that you've still managed to keep, your kind of links to the community intact to some degree?
I mean, I guess appreciated that it's still to some degree, but I still feel a sense of loss because community was probably the best part of Christianity as far as I'm concerned. And there is an aspect like I'm just an outsider. I'm an outsider that just goes to church. Yeah. And some people are still friends with me, but it's a different kind of friendship. It's just a little bit different. And trying to strengthen those bonds despite the break is a challenge.
Yeah. All right.
Do you feel like they're just kind of being friendly just because of your wife, I guess, so to speak, because she's still a member?
I think some of them are friendly because they want me to become a Christian again. Those are the people I wasn't really friends with anyway. as far as like my close friends anyway, I think it's just troubling to them, and they love me anyway, and they like me anyway, but it's still something deeply troubling that perhaps they just avoid thinking about.
Okay, sorry, the screen went black there, so I thought we'd lost connection, but we're still on the air. Just quite
Yeah,
quick.
I'm not touching the device, so hopefully I'll screw it up.
No, it was actually the live stream there. I just saw the screen go black. I was kind of
Okay.
worried the
Yeah,
server
I
went-
think something reloaded or something.
Yep.
okay.
So with that, we've lost all the chat room questions. There was a few there. So, yeah, just, you know, because, sorry, get this thought right. Yeah, because the thing with the community is, I think the church, it kind of provides, like, you've almost got every service just there in the church that you can ever want, you know. If you're having problems with the kids, or if you need someone to look after the kids, it's all there, or... You know,
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I can understand how that could be quite a big loss. Well, and it's probably not that extreme, but like, you know, from what we've heard, have you ever heard of Jerry DeWitt? He was a former pastor, and
Oh, yeah.
we had him
I
on the
have.
show, and like, it's, I mean, I'm amazed he can still smile at all with what he's been through.
Yeah. Well, he's started his own atheist church now, so he's still got a lot of people around.
There's some of the questions coming back. Do you think a lot of people in Christianity are traumatized by their experiences within the church, and is that why quite a few leave?
I wasn't, I live in New England, so it's not like the South where I suspect there might be more of that. I don't know. It's not like there's racism around here very much, and I can't speak to people leaving based on traumatic things. I think the people I noticed that leave, maybe they just realize it isn't true, or it didn't do it for them. You know, maybe they didn't really believe to begin with. That seems to be why people leave, at least around me.
Okay, and there is a question saying, what's your opinion of these atheist churches?
I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I wish they had one around here, but
Yeah, I'm kind of half and half on it. I can see why, like what we've spoken about, the whole community structure and losing that can be, but then there's the other side. Some of it just does seem a bit ridiculous to me. I don't know, what do you guys think of it? Sheila, I'll go to you first.
Well, it's interesting that that this topic has come up. One of my co-hosts on A News is actually one of the co-founders of something. It's the Godless Revival, and it's in New York. He originally was with the couple out of, I believe they're English, that had started the Atheist Church or whatever, and then just kind of branched off and started his own thing. And it's more like, what he's got going on is more like a talent show, I guess, for lack of a better term. They kind of get together and they have, bands and, stand-up comics and stuff. And it's really just a place for atheists and non-believers to get together and kind of hang out, for pretty much the reasons that you said, because they're used to having some sort of that weekly hangout, or, a place where they can get together and just kind of, hang out with people of like minds, I guess, socially, right? As far as calling it a church, I think that's probably one of the biggest drawbacks for it. Is even within itself referring to itself as a church, and as far as Christians and other members of faith, kind of poking fun at it by calling it a church. I think that probably draws more negative attention to it than is necessary. But I guess it depends on how it's handled.
Yeah.
I know Lee does a really good job with it.
Yeah, Kitch,
on the church.
Kitch, get your opinion on that.
Sure. No matter how much coffee, I can never seem to get my thoughts out correctly. It's an interesting idea. I just haven't given it much thought, so I can't really give a really articulate or detailed opinion on it. So I could see why, though, just what I've heard about why people would like to have an atheist church. I really don't like that phrase, though, atheist church. I prefer more of maybe a society or group, I think that'd probably be a bit better. Because
Well, you need to have something that gives them the idea that it's a weekly meeting, though.
Yeah.
So that's true. So it can be a lot of good. I think the I think when we're about the ideas, maybe some of the objections behind it is it becoming more like a religion. I think it's more of what good is this doing? Is this doing a lot of good? And if it is, then sure, run with it, go with it, see what happens.
Yeah.
That's what I think. If it's doing good, then I think it's a good idea.
Right, and Marty, I get your opinion on it.
Yeah, I think I understand why it would be a good thing in a society where you have this established custom of going to church every Sunday. I can understand that because you have these societies where you can go whenever you have a problem or whatever, this for the social support, if you will. But for me, it's never been an issue.
Yeah. Because you're kind of coming. That's the one that you always come from a totally different background from everyone else. But I do remember, Kitch, there was one set up in Belfast, wasn't there, an atheist church recently?
I wouldn't know.
The reaction from the government was not good at all. They just weren't happy with it. But that's Northern Ireland's just very different to everywhere else in the UK.
Yeah,
it's still
for the world.
Yeah, it's still a bit crazy there. Just to let everyone know, we're coming up. There's 20. My maths is all out there.
13.
Sorry, 13. Yes. There, you just snapped into math teacher mode there, Martin. Yeah, there's 13 minutes to go. So please get your questions in for the end here, and I'll have a quick look. No, there's nothing coming up at the moment. So Sheila, Michael, or Marty, if you want to take up a question, I'll see if I can get the chat room to that.
I thought I saw something earlier. I'm gonna have a look. Whoa. No, I can't find anything.
All right. Sheila, do you have anything?
I don't know, not necessarily, I guess. Do you... No, I had one, but it's gone. Sorry.
Well,
This is what happens when it's about 10, 15 minutes left. We run out of questions. No, I think there was a question in the chat room about why. I'm not sure. Maybe it was a joke question, but if Christians think that Jesus is coming back anytime soon, why do they bother having kids?
Well, I mean, then more people, because the kids will live forever. I mean, that's more people to have in heaven.
Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of suspecting that it was a joke question. So
yeah. I have a tendency to answer things anyway.
I was going to say, what's the one thing looking back on you just with the whole fund that you just think, how did I believe that? Just there's one kind of little detail, whether it be the creation story or anything like. Is there just one thing, like say someone used in Apologetics that when you found out it was just totally false and you just went, how did I fall for that? Is there anything that comes to mind?
As far as why I believed or when I stopped
just
believing?
like I say, when you believed and you would listen to, say, your sermons or read apologetics books, is there just any details you remember you look back on and just think, how did I fall for this? Like, say it's just like one argument or something, say
poor arguments from apologists, you mean?
Yeah, like if there's one pure argument you think, oh, how did I fall for that at the time?
Yeah, well, I mean, like the one where would they have died for a lie? The disciples. I found out the truth is we just don't know how they died or the precise circumstances of how they died, and you actually need several criteria in order for that to be a reasonable argument anyway. They need to have, they would have had to have gone through their deaths knowing that it was actually true, not just believing it. And if they recanted, then it would have saved their lives, kind of thing. Yeah. But we just don't know even how they died in most cases.
Yeah, and is there just any others you can remember that really stuck out?
I mean, just that dinosaur bones and human bones had been found together as far as evidence against evolution.
Yeah.
The idea that radiometric dating is flawed because, I heard that was, even my pastor said this, my educated current pastor, this whole idea that they found a live fish that was carbon dated to like 1 million years old, which is, basically shows that carbon dating doesn't make any sense. But then I learned that it's different from marine life. You can't use carbon dating because of what they consume or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just
the
science.
reservoir effect.
What'd you say?
I think it's the reservoir effect. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've looked at it.
Yeah, it's because they ingest their food because they get their food in the water or something like that. I can't remember. It's in Potoller's famous
they ingest
video.
things that are extraordinarily old or something like that,
Yeah, and that gets into their bloodstream and can give these weird ages.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just... I think that for a Christian, like when you're a Christian, you just hear these surface arguments and you immediately accept them, and there's really no reason to look any deeper. There's no reason to truly consider the other side, because what's in it for you? There's nothing in it for you. You have everything to lose. You lose your community, your comprehensive worldview, your expectation of heaven, all those things. And you'd be risking hell. So there's like no reason to even use your full faculties in the debate,
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say...
That was an interesting question there. I'm posting it now. We all believe pretty much different things. What makes you five on Skype think you're not going to hell?
Just haven't seen anything.
What makes you think there is a hell?
Yeah, that's the first thing.
That's the question, yeah.
You have to show us there's a hell first, and then...
We're all skeptics, so without some sort of evidence to prove that there is one, then I guess that's pretty much it.
Right. Whoever wrote that, I mean, do they fear the Quran's version of hell? And if not, why not?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Well, I don't know what you guys, but I know I will be resting up in Valhalla.
Well, technically speaking, Marty's got more right to go to Valhalla than any of us. He's from the original land of Vikings.
I have Thor's hammer.
Okay, everyone. Like I say, there's not much time left, so chat room, if you want to get your final questions in, now's your chance. And like I say, any last questions, I'll just go around for David from my panelists. Marty, do you have any last questions you want to get in?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Yeah. Sheila.
No, I did want to tell you that it was definitely a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you.
Yeah.
I was unfamiliar with your work before this week, but I will definitely be reading your book. As someone who's always been an atheist, I'm always fascinated with how people come to the same decision that I've made. For people who have been of faith, no matter what the denomination is, to suddenly decide, or to not suddenly necessarily, but to figure out or come to the same conclusions that I've come to. So I'll definitely be reading it. But thanks for coming on and giving us a chance to talk to you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. There was one question I wanted to ask. What were you told about atheists when you were in the church? I mean, did they ever speak about atheists in the services or anything?
I noticed, perhaps I notice it more when I go to church now, but they're just, non-believers are just referred to as being rebellious and angry. And I'm being referred to as that. And I'm like, what? It's shocking and hurtful. And I'm like, almost like I'm this, teenager or something. So.
Yeah, I got that quite a bit when I was going to church. That was very much, they're just angry at God. Which is just a bizarre statement. When you look at it now, it's just the weirdest statement to make. They're angry at something they don't believe in.
I know. That's what I say in the book. I mentioned that.
Yeah. Kitch, do you have any final questions?
Just based going off of what we were just talking about, carbon dating. Did you see the debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye? And being a former believer, do you think that had any effect on changing people's minds on the topic of evolution?
No, my wife watched it as well. So no, she has less respect for Bill Nye now.
All right. Okay, everyone, we're coming up to the end of the show now, so we'll just do the usual. So, David, if you want to have a few minutes to shout out anything that you've got coming up, or just anything you want to say to our audience in general, and now's your soapbox.
Well, I mean, all I can hope for is that people will read it and share it, because all I am is a stay-at-home dad with a story to tell. I don't have some I can't exactly put a bunch of money towards marketing, because I don't think my wife would appreciate that. So.
Oh, there is one question that's just come in the chat room. Do you agree that people of religion are totally unable to empathize with those who have no religion?
I think that would be difficult, and I even with my wife, she literally doesn't understand it. I think it's at some point she said that nothing would convince her. Like, she could not be convinced that it wasn't true.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the difference between Ken Ham and Bill Nye. Bill Nye would be convinced with evidence. Ken Ham, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's. I don't think I had that type of position. Even though I thought I had the truth, I didn't have the position that I would believe it no matter what. I had the position that I fear no argument because I believe I have the truth.
Yeah.
I fear no evidence because I believe I have the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up changing my mind.
All right. Okay, just to get the final thoughts of the panel, and I'll go to Kitch first.
Yeah, big major thanks to David for coming out and making this a very interesting show, and I'll be sure to get your book, and I'd recommend for all of our viewers to buy it.
Yep, I'll be putting the link in the chat room shortly. And Sheila, go to you for your final thoughts.
Sure. I guess for everyone in the chat room, in addition to being here, you can also find me on A News, Inappropriate Humor and Atheist News. You can find me on Facebook or on Twitter at Sheila Blackadder.
And Marty.
Yeah, I don't know what I have to say. Thanks, David, for being on the show. And to those wondering why I haven't uploaded any video in a while now, well, I guess I uploaded one less than a week ago. But anyway, I've had a lot of work. It's that simple. So there's more to come.
Yeah. And so a very big thank you to David, everyone. Everyone in the chat room, give you a big thumbs up for David for coming along. It's been great, David. Thank you very much for taking the time out.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It was great.
All right, and just to let everyone know, we are back same time next week, and our guest is Kona Morris, and she's one of the authors behind the Godless comic series. If you haven't heard of them, they've been featured on the Richard Dawkins website. It's just like humorous little cartoon strips just on the subject of religion, atheism, and all that stuff. So hope you all look forward to that. And like I say, if you're listening to us on iTunes, please kind of give us a rating and a review to help us move up the charts a little bit. And I think there's no other announcements from us, is there? I haven't forgotten anything.
Yeah, actually, we didn't mention it earlier, but the charity that we're raising money for.
Oh, yeah. I'll mention the charity we're raising money for this year on the 5th of July is Engineers Without Borders. They're a really fantastic organisation. One, I feel they don't get enough publicity. Basically, they go in, just to give an example, like in a war zone, they'll put in things like fresh water supplies, they'll build bridges, roads, renewable energies for all, for those people who are unable, who are just a lot worse off than us. They're a fantastic group and well deserving of support. And so hopefully you will all join us and all really give us a lot of good donations that night. And I don't think there's anything else I can add. So hope you enjoyed the show, everyone, and have a good rest of the weekend wherever you are. And we'll see you all same time next week. So good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye, all.